The diamond bracelet glittered in the store window, mocking me with its extravagance. I could feel Marcus's eyes boring into the side of my head, his excitement palpable. My stomach churned. "Isn't it perfect, Belinda?" Marcus gushed, pressing his face against the glass like a child eyeing candy. "Mom will absolutely love it." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's beautiful, but Marcus, we can't afford." "Nonsense." He waved his hand dismissively. "It's Mom's 70th birthday. We have to make it special." I bit my lip, my mind racing through our mounting bills, the leaky roof, and the stack of unpaid credit card statements hidden in my desk drawer. "Honey, $3,000 is a lot of money right now. Maybe we could find something more reasonable?" Marcus's face darkened, his jovial mood evaporating instantly. "Are you saying my mother isn't worth it?" "That's not what I meant, and you know it," I snapped, my patience wearing thin. "I'm saying we have responsibilities, Marcus. Bills to pay, a house to maintain, and family to take care of," he interrupted, his voice rising. Passers-by glanced our way, and I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment. Mom has always been there for us. The least we can do is show her how much we appreciate her. I wanted to scream, to shake him and make him understand the precarious financial tightrope we were walking. Instead, I took a deep breath and tried a different approach. "Marcus, sweetie, I know you want to do something special for your mom, but what if we planned a nice dinner instead? Something intimate, with all her favorite foods?" He scoffed, shaking his head. "A dinner? That's your big idea? God, Belinda, sometimes I wonder if you have any heart at all." His words stung, and I felt tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. "That's not fair," I whispered, my voice trembling. "You know what's not fair?" Marcus growled, turning to face me fully. "Working my ass off every day only to come home to a wife who doesn't support me or my family." I recoiled, as if he'd slapped me. "How dare you? I've been holding us together for months while you bounce from job to job, making grand promises you can't keep." The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I'd crossed a line. Marcus's face contorted with rage, his fists clenching at his sides. "Is that what you think of me?" he hissed. "That I'm some kind of failure?" "Marcus, I didn't mean—" "Save it," he spat, turning on his heel and storming into the jewelry store. My heart raced as I watched him approach the counter, gesturing animatedly at the bracelet in the window. This couldn't be happening. We were already drowning in debt, and here he was, about to add another $3,000 to the pile. I rushed into the store, my palms sweating. "Marcus, please, let's talk about this." He ignored me, smiling charmingly at the saleswoman. "We'll take it," he announced proudly. The saleswoman beamed, reaching for the bracelet. "Excellent choice, sir. Your wife will love it." "Oh, it's not for my wife," Marcus corrected her, shooting me a pointed look. "It's for my mother, someone who actually appreciates me." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Tears threatened to spill over as I watched Marcus hand over our credit card, sealing our financial fate with a flourish of his signature. As we left the store, Marcus clutched the small, elegant bag triumphantly. "See? Was that so hard?" I couldn't speak, my throat tight with unshed tears and simmering anger. How had we gotten here? When had my loving, supportive husband turned into this selfish stranger? As we approached our car, Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and grinned. "It's Mom. She wants us to come over right away. Says she has a surprise for us." I closed my eyes, willing the ground to swallow me whole. What fresh hell awaited us at Edna's house? And how much more could our fragile marriage take before it shattered completely? The memory hit me like a freight train as we pulled into Edna's driveway. Suddenly I was back at Chez Pierre, that overpriced French restaurant, watching helplessly as Marcus ordered another bottle of champagne. "To new beginnings," he'd toasted, clinking glasses with his rowdy college friends. I'd smiled tightly, my stomach in knots. We couldn't afford this extravagance, not with Marcus between jobs, again. As the night wore on, the bill grew astronomical. When it finally arrived, Marcus leaned in close, his breath reeking of expensive wine. "Honey, I seem to have forgotten my wallet. You've got this, right?" My cheeks burned as I fumbled for my credit card, praying it wouldn't be declined. That night had cost us nearly 2 months' rent. Now, staring at Edna's perfectly manicured lawn, I felt that same sickening dread. What surprise could she possibly have in store? "Come on, Belinda," Marcus urged, already halfway up the path. "Don't keep Mom waiting." I trudged behind him, clutching my purse like a shield. The front door swung open before we could knock, revealing Edna in all her carefully curated glory. "My darlings," she cooed, enveloping Marcus in a perfumed embrace. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she turned to me. "Belinda, dear, you look tired. Are you sleeping enough?" "I'm fine, Edna," I replied, forcing a smile. "What's this surprise you mentioned?" Edna's face lit up. "Oh, you're going to love this! Come, come!" She ushered us into the living room, where an elderly man sat perched on her floral sofa. He stood as we entered, revealing an impressively tall, lean frame. "Marcus, Belinda," Edna announced, practically vibrating with excitement. "I'd like you to meet Charles, my fiancé." The world tilted on its axis. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself, certain I'd misheard. "Your fiancé?" Marcus sputtered, his face a mask of confusion. Charles stepped forward, extending a weathered hand. "Pleasure to meet you both. Edna's told me so much about you." I shook his hand numbly, my mind reeling. Edna was getting married? At her age? And why hadn't she mentioned this before? "Mom," Marcus said slowly, "when did this happen?" Edna waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, Charles and I have known each other for ages. We reconnected at my bridge club a few months ago, and well..." She giggled girlishly. "When you know, you know." I caught Marcus's eye, silently pleading for some sanity in this surreal moment. But he just grinned, pulling his mother into another hug. "That's wonderful, Mom. I'm so happy for you." My heart sank. Of course he was thrilled. This was just another excuse for celebration, another reason to spend money we didn't have. "We're thinking a June wedding," Edna continued, her eyes sparkling. "Nothing too extravagant, of course, just close family and friends at the country club." I nearly choked. The country club? The same one that had rejected our membership application due to financial considerations? "That sounds lovely," I managed, my voice strained. "But Edna, are you sure this isn't a bit rushed?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Edna's smile tightened, and Charles shifted uncomfortably. "Rushed?" Edna repeated, her tone dangerously sweet. "My dear, at my age, every moment is precious. Why wait?" Marcus shot me a warning glance. "What Belinda means is, we want to make sure you have time to plan the perfect day." Edna's expression softened slightly. "Oh, that's all taken care of. In fact," she paused dramatically, "we were hoping you two might help with some of the arrangements, and perhaps contribute to the festivities." There it was, the other shoe dropping with a resounding thud. "Of course," Marcus exclaimed before I could open my mouth. "Anything for you, Mom. Right, Belinda?" I felt trapped, cornered by their expectant gazes. How could I explain that we were drowning in debt, that every extra penny went towards keeping our own heads above water? "We'd be happy to help," I heard myself say, the words tasting like ash. "Just let us know what you need." Edna clapped her hands in delight. "Wonderful! Oh, this is going to be such fun." As she launched into a detailed description of her dream wedding, I caught a glimpse of Charles. For just a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt? Uncertainty? Whatever it was, it vanished as quickly as it appeared, but it left me with a gnawing suspicion that there was more to this surprise engagement than met the eye. The moving truck rumbled away, leaving Edna's mountain of luggage piled in our driveway. I stared at the mess, my heart sinking. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be. "Isn't this wonderful?" Marcus beamed, hefting a floral suitcase. "Mom living with us, just like old times." I forced a smile, bile rising in my throat. "Wonderful," I echoed, my voice hollow. Edna tottered up the path, leaning heavily on her cane. "Oh, Belinda dear, be a lamb and fetch my toiletries bag. It's the Louis Vuitton one." Of course it was. I bit back a retort and dutifully retrieved the designer bag, its price tag mocking me with every step. Once inside, Edna settled into our best armchair like a queen on her throne. "Now, about my room. We've set up the guest room for you, Mom," Marcus said. "It's got a lovely view of the garden." Edna's lips pursed. "The guest room? But darling, I was hoping for something larger. Perhaps the master bedroom?" I nearly dropped the bag I was holding. "Our bedroom?" "Well, you two are younger," Edna reasoned. "You can manage the stairs better than I can." Before I could protest, Marcus jumped in. "Of course, Mom. Whatever makes you comfortable. We'll move our things right away." I gaped at him, disbelief warring with fury, but Edna was already moving on, her voice syrupy sweet. "Belinda, while the boys handle the heavy lifting, perhaps you could whip up a little something? I'm famished after all this excitement." Gritting my teeth, I retreated to the kitchen. As I aggressively chopped vegetables for a salad, I could hear Edna directing Marcus on furniture placement upstairs. Our furniture. In her new room. Hours later, exhausted and aching, I collapsed onto our new bed in the guest room. Marcus flopped down beside me, grinning like a fool. "Isn't this great? Mom seems so happy already." I turned to face him, struggling to keep my voice level. "Marcus, we need to talk about this. How long is she planning to stay?" He shrugged. "As long as she needs to, I guess. The doctor said her blood pressure's been acting up." "And what about her house? Her fiancé?" Marcus's brow furrowed. "Charles? Oh, that fell through. Turns out he was only after her money or something. Can you believe it?" I could, actually, but I held my tongue, focusing on the more pressing issue. "So she's here indefinitely? Marcus, we can't afford—" "Don't start, Belinda," he cut me off, his tone sharp. "She's family. We take care of family." The next morning, I woke to find Edna already ensconced in the kitchen, rifling through our cabinets. "Good heavens," she tutted. "Don't you have any proper tea? This simply won't do." Before I could respond, she thrust a piece of paper into my hands. "Be a dear, and pick up a few things for me, won't you?" "Nothing fancy, just the essentials." I scanned the list, my eyes widening at each outrageous item. Imported caviar? Truffle oil? "Edna, these aren't essentials. They're luxury items. We can't." "Oh, pish-posh," she waved dismissively. "I'll reimburse you, of course. Now hurry along. I've got a busy day ahead." Curious despite myself, I asked, "Busy with what?" Edna's eyes gleamed. "Well, if you must know, I've joined the most delightful club, the Golden Oak Society. We're having our first meeting here this afternoon." My stomach dropped. "Here? Today?" She nodded, oblivious to my distress. "Just a small gathering, 10 or 12 ladies. You don't mind handling the refreshments, do you? Nothing too elaborate, some finger sandwiches, petit fours, that sort of thing." I stared at her, speechless. This woman had commandeered our bedroom, was sending me on errands for overpriced groceries, and now expected me to cater a party for her new social club? "Oh, and one more thing," Edna added, her voice suddenly hesitant. "I hate to ask, but, well, the club has dues. Rather steep ones, I'm afraid. I was hoping you might be able to help out just this once." The final straw. I opened my mouth, ready to unleash years of pent-up frustration. But at that moment, Marcus appeared, yawning and stretching. "Morning, ladies," he mumbled. "What's for breakfast?" Edna beamed at him. "Your wonderful wife was just offering to make us something special. Weren't you, Belinda?" I met her gaze, seeing the challenge there. The ball was in my court. I could expose her manipulations, risk my marriage, and shatter this fragile peace. Or I could swallow my pride again and play along. What would it be? The truth, or another lie to add to the growing pile? I stared at the check in my hand, my vision blurring with unshed tears. $5,000. It might as well have been $5 million for all the difference it would make to our dwindling savings. "Belinda, darling," Edna's voice dripped with honey-coated venom. "You're not having second thoughts, are you? After all, it's for such a good cause." I swallowed hard, forcing myself to meet her gaze. "Of course not, Edna. I'm happy to help your friend." The lie tasted bitter on my tongue, but what choice did I have? For weeks now, Edna had been weaving this tale of woe about her dear friend Mildred, supposedly on the brink of losing her home. Each day brought a new, heart-wrenching detail designed to chip away at my resolve. "Oh, bless you," Edna cooed, snatching the check from my trembling fingers. "Mildred will be so grateful. You know, she hasn't eaten a proper meal in days." I nodded numbly, already calculating which bills would have to go unpaid this month. As Edna tottered off, no doubt to deposit the check immediately, I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. "Everything okay, hon?" Marcus appeared in the doorway, concern etched on his face. For a moment, I considered telling him everything. The mounting debt, the constant drain on our resources, the gnawing suspicion that his mother wasn't being entirely truthful. But then I remembered the way he'd looked at me when I'd questioned Edna's move-in, the disappointment in his eyes. "Fine," I lied, mustering a weak smile. "Just a bit tired." He nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Well, don't work too hard. Mom mentioned something about needing help with her club meeting later." "Of course she did." I bit back a sigh as Marcus disappeared upstairs, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the ever-growing weight of our financial troubles. Hours later, as I arranged delicate finger sandwiches on Edna's prized silver platter, a commotion at the front door caught my attention. "Edna, darling," a shrill voice called out, "we're here!" I peered around the corner to see a group of impeccably dressed women flooding into our living room. Leading the pack was a statuesque blonde, her diamonds glittering in the afternoon light. "Vivian!" Edna exclaimed, embracing the woman. "So glad you could make it. Ladies, welcome to the Golden Oak Society's newest meeting place." My jaw dropped. This was Edna's small gathering? There had to be at least 20 women, each dripping in designer labels and expensive jewelry. As I scrambled to prepare more refreshments, snippets of conversation drifted my way. Simply must try the new spa at the country club. Thinking of summering in the Hamptons this year? That dreadful charity gala last week? What a bore. My head spun. These weren't the conversations of women concerned about a friend losing her home. These were the idle chatter of the wealthy and privileged. Suddenly, a familiar name caught my ear. "Mildred, dear, that necklace is divine. Is it new?" I froze, my hand halfway to the teapot. "Mildred? Wasn't that the friend Edna said was in dire straits?" Peering around the corner, I spotted an elegantly dressed woman, her neck adorned with a stunning diamond necklace that probably cost more than our mortgage. "Oh, this old thing." Mildred laughed, her voice light and carefree. "Just a little something I picked up in Paris last month." The teacup I was holding slipped from my grasp, shattering on the kitchen floor. The chatter in the living room died down, and I felt all eyes turn towards the kitchen. "Belinda?" Edna called out, her voice sharp. "Is everything all right in there?" I stood frozen, the pieces finally falling into place. The expensive club dues, the constant demands for money, the lavish lifestyle these women led. It had all been a lie. In that moment, I knew I had a choice to make. I could continue playing the dutiful daughter-in-law, sacrificing my financial security and self-respect for the sake of keeping the peace. Or I could stand up for myself, expose the truth, and face the consequences. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the living room, my eyes locking with Edna's. The look of panic that flashed across her face told me everything I needed to know. "Ladies," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "I think it's time we had a little chat about Mildred's financial situation." The silence in the room was deafening. 20 pairs of eyes bored into me, a mix of confusion and indignation on their perfectly made-up faces. Edna's smile had frozen, a brittle mask that threatened to shatter at any moment. "Belinda, dear," she said, her voice strained. "What on earth are you talking about?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "I'm talking about the $10,000 I lent you, Edna. The money you said was for Mildred's dire financial situation." Mildred's eyebrows shot up. "My financial situation? I assure you, I'm quite comfortable." "Exactly," I said, my voice gaining strength, "which is why I'm wondering where that money really went." A ripple of whispers swept through the room. Edna's face had gone pale, her eyes darting between me and her friends. "This is hardly the time or place," she began, but I cut her off. "No, I think this is exactly the time and place," I said, my anger finally boiling over. "You've been lying to me, Edna, using me to fund your lavish lifestyle while Marcus and I struggle to make ends meet." The room erupted in a cacophony of gasps and murmurs. I caught snippets of conversation. "How embarrassing! Poor Edna! What a dreadful scene!" But I kept my eyes fixed on my mother-in-law. Edna's facade crumbled, replaced by a look of cold fury. "How dare you?" she hissed. "After everything I've done for you and Marcus." "Everything you've done," I laughed bitterly. "You mean moving into our house, taking over our lives, and draining our bank account?" Just then, Marcus appeared in the doorway, his eyes wide with shock. "What's going on here?" "Your wife has lost her mind," Edna snapped, turning to him with tears in her eyes. "She's accusing me of theft in front of all my friends." Marcus looked between us, confusion etched on his face. "Belinda, what are you doing?" I felt a moment of doubt. Was I making a terrible mistake? But then I remembered the mounting bills, the sleepless nights, the constant stress of trying to keep our heads above water. "I'm telling the truth," I said firmly. "Your mother has been lying to us, Marcus. There is no friend in need. She's been using our money to fund her social club and who knows what else." The color drained from Marcus's face. "Mom, is this true?" Edna's expression hardened. Of course not. Your wife is clearly jealous of my social connections. She's always resented me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jealous? Resented? Edna, I've bent over backwards trying to accommodate you. As the argument escalated, I noticed one of Edna's friends slipping out her phone, no doubt capturing the drama for posterity. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. Our dirty laundry was about to become very public. Enough, Marcus shouted, silencing the room. He turned to the gathered women, his face flushed with embarrassment. Ladies, I'm terribly sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We clearly have some family matters to discuss. As the women filed out, shooting curious glances over their shoulders, I felt a mix of relief and dread. The truth was finally out, but at what cost? Once we were alone, Marcus rounded on me. What the hell were you thinking, Belinda? Humiliating my mother like that? I stared at him in disbelief. Are you kidding me? Did you not hear a word I said? Edna seized the opportunity, tears streaming down her face. I can't believe you'd choose to believe her over your own mother, Marcus. After everything I've sacrificed for you. I watched as Marcus's resolve wavered, his eyes softening at his mother's distress. In that moment, I realized I was at a crossroads. I could back down, apologize, and try to salvage this mess. Or I could stand my ground and fight for the truth, even if it meant losing everything. As Marcus moved to comfort his mother, I made my decision. I'd been silent for too long, played the dutiful wife and daughter-in-law at the expense of my own well-being. No more. Marcus, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands, I need you to listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to say will change everything. I took a deep breath, steadying myself for the storm I was about to unleash. Marcus, your mother has been lying to us, not just about the money, but about everything. Marcus's face contorted with confusion and anger. What are you talking about? The health issues. The needing to move in with us? It was all a lie, I said, my voice surprisingly calm despite the chaos in my head. She's been using our money to fund her lavish lifestyle and her precious Golden Oaks society. Edna let out an indignant gasp. How dare you? Marcus, don't listen to her. She's clearly lost her mind. But I was beyond caring about Edna's theatrics. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the photos I'd taken earlier that day. Look at these, Marcus. Receipts for spa treatments, designer clothes, first-class tickets to Paris, all charged to our credit card. Marcus's eyes widened as he swiped through the images. This can't be right. Oh, it's right, I said, my voice hardening. And that's not even the worst of it. Remember that $10,000 I lent her for her friend in need? It went straight into the Golden Oaks Society's party fund. Edna's face had gone pale, her usual poise crumbling. I can explain. Save it, I snapped. I've heard enough of your explanations. Marcus looked between us, his face a mask of confusion and hurt. Mom, is this true? Have you been lying to us this whole time? For a moment I thought Edna might confess, but then her eyes hardened, and she straightened her spine. Of course not. Your wife is clearly jealous of my social standing. She's trying to turn you against me, Marcus. Can't you see that? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Even now, faced with irrefutable evidence, she was still trying to manipulate the situation. Jealous? I laughed bitterly. Of what? Your ability to leech off your own son? To destroy our financial stability for the sake of your ego? Marcus held up his hands, looking overwhelmed. Both of you, just stop. I can't think with all this yelling. Fine, I said, my voice tight with suppressed anger. Then let's talk numbers. Marcus, do you have any idea how much debt we're in because of your mother's health issues and friend in need? He shook his head slowly, looking almost afraid to hear the answer. I pulled out a stack of bills from my bag, spreading them across the coffee table. Credit card debt, personal loans, our savings account drained dry. We're looking at over $50,000 in debt, Marcus. And for what? So your mother could play socialite with her rich friends? The color drained from Marcus's face as he stared at the bills. This can't be right. Mom, tell me this isn't true. Edna's lip quivered, but her eyes remained defiant. You don't understand. I had to maintain appearances. The Golden Oaks Society is everything to me. Without it, I'm nothing. The admission hung in the air, heavy and damning. Marcus looked like he'd been slapped. So it is true. he whispered. "You've been lying to us this whole time." I felt a momentary pang of sympathy for him, seeing his world crumble. But then I remembered all the sleepless nights, the constant stress, the sacrifices I'd made to keep us afloat. "I want her out," I said, my voice low but firm. "Now." Marcus's head snapped up. "Belinda, we can't just throw her out. She's my mother. And I'm your wife," I shouted, finally losing my composure. "The woman who's been holding this family together while you two played your little games. I'm done, Marcus. It's her or me." The ultimatum hung in the air, charged with years of resentment and betrayal. Marcus looked between us, torn between the woman who raised him and the woman he'd vowed to love and cherish. Edna seized the moment of hesitation. "Marcus, darling, you can't possibly choose her over your own mother. After everything I've done for you." I held my breath, watching Marcus's face. This was it. The moment that would define our future. As he opened his mouth to speak, I steeled myself for whatever came next, knowing that no matter what he said, nothing would ever be the same again. The silence that followed my ultimatum was deafening. I watched Marcus, my heart pounding, as he struggled with the impossible choice I'd laid before him. His eyes darted between Edna and me, conflict etched deep in the lines of his face. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I can't choose between you." My heart sank. Even now, faced with irrefutable evidence of his mother's deceit, he couldn't bring himself to take a stand. Edna seized the moment, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Oh, my poor boy. You shouldn't have to choose. Belinda's just upset. We can work this out as a family." I felt something snap inside me. "Family?" I spat. "Is that what you call this? Lying, manipulating, draining us dry?" Marcus flinched at my tone. "Belinda, please, we're all under a lot of stress. Maybe if we just calm down." "Calm down?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Marcus, we're drowning in debt because of her. How can you still defend her?" He ran a hand through his hair, looking lost. "She's my mother, Belinda. I can't just turn my back on her." In that moment, I saw our future unfold with crystal clarity. Years of struggle, of always coming second to Edna's wants and needs, of Marcus never truly standing up for me, for us. "Fine," I said, my voice eerily calm. "If that's how you feel, I'll make the choice for you." I walked to our bedroom, no, the guest room now, and pulled out the suitcase I'd hidden in the back of the closet weeks ago. I'd packed it in a moment of desperation, never truly believing I'd use it. Now, I was grateful for my foresight. When I returned to the living room, Marcus's eyes widened in panic. "Belinda, what are you doing?" "What I should have done months ago," I replied, my resolve strengthening with each word. "I'm leaving." Edna's triumphant smirk made my blood boil. Now, dear, there's no need for such dramatics. Why don't we all sit down and—" "Save it," I cut her off. "I'm done listening to your lies." I turned to Marcus, fighting back tears. "I love you, Marcus, I always have. But I can't do this anymore. I won't set myself on fire to keep you too warm." He reached for me, his eyes pleading. "Belinda, please, we can figure this out. I'll get another job. We'll pay off the debt." I stepped back, shaking my head. "It's not about the money, Marcus. It's about trust. It's about respect. And you've shown me that I'll never have either from you." With shaking hands, I pulled an envelope from my bag and placed it on the coffee table. "These are divorce papers. I've already signed them." The color drained from Marcus's face. "Divorce? Belinda, you can't be serious." "I've never been more serious in my life," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "I deserve better than this, Marcus, and deep down I think you know that." Edna scoffed, her mask of concern slipping. "Well, if that's how you feel, don't let the door hit you on the way out." I turned to her, years of pent-up anger and resentment boiling over. "You know what, Edna? I feel sorry for you. You're so desperate for status and approval that you'd sacrifice your own son's happiness. I hope it was worth it." With that, I grabbed my suitcase and headed for the door. As I reached for the handle, Marcus called out, his voice breaking. "Belinda, wait, please. I love you." I paused, my hand on the doorknob. For a moment, I allowed myself to imagine turning back, of giving him one last chance. But then I thought of all the broken promises, the constant sacrifices, the years of putting everyone else's needs before my own. "I love you too, Marcus," I said softly, not turning around. "But sometimes, love isn't enough." With those final words, I stepped out into the cool night air, closing the door on my old life. As I walked towards an uncertain future, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. For the first time in years, I was free. And despite the challenges ahead, I knew that whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. 6 months after walking out that door, I stood in front of the courthouse, my heart pounding. Today was the final divorce hearing, and I was ready to close this chapter of my life for good. As I climbed the steps, I caught sight of Marcus and Edna, huddled together near the entrance. Marcus looked haggard, his once crisp suits replaced by wrinkled clothes that hung loosely on his frame. Edna, on the other hand, still clung to her designer handbag, though her perfectly coiffed appearance seemed forced, almost desperate. Our eyes met, and for a moment I felt a pang of, not regret, exactly, but a bittersweet acknowledgement of what could have been. Then I straightened my spine and walked past them, head held high. Inside the courtroom, my lawyer, Sarah, greeted me with a reassuring smile. "Ready for this, Belinda?" I nodded, surprising myself with my calm. "More than ready." The proceedings began, a blur of legal jargon and formalities. But when it came time to discuss the financial settlement, the room crackled with tension. "Your Honor," Sarah began, "my client is seeking full repayment of the $10,000 loan made to Mrs. Edna Thompson, as well as half of all marital assets." Marcus's lawyer jumped in, his voice strained. "Your Honor, my client is not in a position to repay such a sum. The loan was a gift made in good faith." "Objection," Sarah interrupted. "We have evidence proving the deceptive nature of Mrs. Thompson's request for funds." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Proceed." As Sarah presented the damning evidence, bank statements, text messages, even photos from the lavish parties funded by my hard-earned money, I watched Marcus and Edna. Their faces crumpled, the weight of their actions finally sinking in. When the judge ruled in my favor, ordering full repayment and a fair division of assets, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about justice, about finally standing up for myself. Outside the courtroom, Marcus approached me, his eyes pleading. "Belinda, I'm so sorry. For everything. I should have listened to you, should have seen what was happening." I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt a surge of pity. "I'm sorry too, Marcus. I hope you find happiness, I really do." As I turned to leave, Edna called out, her voice lacking its usual imperious tone. "Belinda, wait! I never meant for things to go this far. I just wanted to feel important," I finished for her. "I understand that, Edna, but not at the expense of others, not at the expense of your own son." Leaving them behind, I walked out into the sunlight, feeling lighter than I had in years. My new apartment waited across town, small but all mine. My job at the high school had become a source of joy again, now that I wasn't constantly stressed about money. As I drove home, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the sleepless nights, but also the strength I'd found, the friendships I'd forged, the self-respect I'd reclaimed. Entering my apartment, I was greeted by the sight of fresh flowers on the table, a gift from my sister, celebrating my new beginning. I smiled, running my fingers over the soft petals. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Congratulations? Drinks to celebrate?" I typed back a quick "absolutely" before setting the phone down and walking to the window. The city sprawled before me, full of possibilities. For so long I defined myself by my roles: wife, daughter-in-law, caretaker. Now I was just Belinda, and for the first time in years, that felt like more than enough. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road ahead might be uncertain, but I was ready to face it. No more sacrificing my happiness for others, no more dimming my light to make someone else shine. I was free. And in that freedom, I'd found something I thought I'd lost forever: hope. Turning from the window, I caught sight of my reflection. The woman staring back at me was stronger, wiser, and infinitely more resilient than the one who had walked out that door 6 months ago. "Here's to new beginnings," I whispered to myself, raising an imaginary toast to the future. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain: I was ready for it. All of it. And that, more than anything, felt like victory.